That is a sweep. The Cincinnati Reds take all three in Denver against the Rockies. We're talking about a sweep on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily source for all things Cincinnati Reds. I'm Stephen Offenbaker. Joining me today, guest host Tim Daniel. One more time, we're going to be talking about the Cincinnati Reds because we love the Reds. We love baseball. We've taken our love of the game, our love of the sport. We turn that in to information for you around here. We thank you for being part of the Locked On Reds. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. On today's show, we're going to be talking about a sweep of the Colorado Rockies. Tim called it. I said 2 of 3. I was wrong. He was right. That don't happen very often around here. I love it. I love it. Cincinnati Reds play rally Reds. They come from behind multiple times to get it done out in Denver to secure the sweep on a getaway day where they could have very easily laid down and just come home to face the Cubs. They didn't do that. They battled through. We're going to be talking about the performances of Spencer Steer. We're going to be talking about Jonathan India, who is having himself some serious couple of weeks, Tim, some serious couple of weeks. Time. We're going to be talking about Elly de la Cruz, who finally strung together a multi-hit game. I've been kind of asking for that. He managed to do it. And then we're also going to have to dig into some not so fun conversation and answer the question, do the Reds have themselves a Graham Ashcraft problem? Because I saw some things during the pitching change there in Denver that leads me to believe there might be a Graham Ashcraft problem brewing on the horizon. We're going to get into all of that on today's episode, which is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, we're going to start with fun stuff. We'll get to that Graham Ashcraft stuff a little bit down the road because I want to start with some fun stuff that went on yesterday out in Denver. The Rally Reds were doing their thing, and a lot of guys contributed to this win. Several key moments, several big hits in this game. Freidl is a guy that really delivered in this game. Jeimer Candelario goes yard again. Spencer Steer hits the go-ahead home run, and then not to be outdone, Jonathan India hits his second grand slam of the year to just blow this thing wide open. Yesterday was my birthday, Tim, and I tweeted after Spencer Steer hit the home run, I tweeted out that the Reds needed to go get a few more insurance runs to make it a happy birthday for me. And like the very next pitch, Jonathan India hits a grand slam. And I quote tweeted myself and was like, Jonathan wanted me to have a special day.
He did.
I appreciate it. It was a fun game. I mean, there were some frustrating moments, but anytime you're the winner that way, anytime you score 6 runs in a 9th inning to blow a game open, that's kind of a fun finish.
Yeah. Well, first off, happy 35th birthday.
I'll take that. I accept 35. Yes, sir.
Yes. But yeah, man, just overall big picture. This is the games you saw them win last year. These are the balls to the wall. Got to figure it out. Got to string at bats together and pull away. And this was a team, you mentioned it. This is a team that very easily could have gone and said, hey, this wasn't our day. Let's get back home. Let's get ready for the Cubs this 4-game set. Try to make some ground up in the division. No, this team started off 4-0, down 4-0, tied the game up, go down 5-4, go down 7-4, score 2 runs in the 8th, and then of course had the 9th inning where they blow it all up. And so many moments in there. So I just kind of did the Cliff Notes version of it, but the way they were putting things together in this game was awesome because let's go back to the first inning, Steve. They had Freidl on third base with no outs and didn't bring him in.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have we seen that this year? We went, okay, that's the game. This was their chance.
That was their one opportunity to score a run.
Yeah.
Yes.
And didn't go through that today. And it was like, if you gave them a free base runner, they took advantage of it. If you walked a guy, if you hit a guy, they made sure that you paid for it. And I know Denver, it must be a little bit harder to read the ball, especially in an afternoon game. But I think that the Charlie Blackmon reaction to Candelario's home run needs to be a meme somewhere because that was unbelievable.
I wish I was good at making those things. I
Me too.
For you, but I am not. The thing I liked about this game, I kind of alluded to it, falling down 4 runs in the first inning on a getaway day after you've already secured the series. There are so many reasons why it would have been very easy to just be like, all right, gang, we're calling it a day. We're going to pack up. We're going home. We're done with that. Now, this Reds team is not in a position to give away games. They need to be battling back. And thank you very much. They have cut the Brewers lead. They've shaved 3 off of it. It's the 7-game lead only. I don't know if you saw the standings. They're no longer in the cellar. They have passed the Pittsburgh Pirates. Sorry, Ethan Smith, but it was inevitable.
I'm not sorry. I hate the Pirates.
I'm agreed. So for me, they're moving on up, and these are the kind of games they have to have. These are the kind of games they have to win. So for them to continue to chip away at it, and it wasn't like they gave up the 4-run lead and had a big inning of their own and like, okay, we're right back in this. That's not how that went. They had to chip away at this. First came on a 2-run home run from Jeimer Candelario in the 5th inning, 3rd inning rather, with 1 on. He homers, cuts it from a 4-run game to a 4-2 game. And then we get a little further into the game, and TJ Freidl homers in the 5th inning with 1 on to tie the game. And
lands in a trash can.
Lands in a trash can. People were very excited. I was trying to remember the last time if I heard of a home run landing in the trash can. There was a foul ball. I believe that it was this season. They kind of all blur together, but I believe it was this season, a foul ball that landed in a trash can next to Chris Welsh in the broadcast booth.
Oh yeah. But
not a home run. So,
yeah, usually baseball and trash cans are not a good combo.
No, I shout out to Houston. I think that you should get an extra run.
Agreed.
Like cricket. Can, right?
It's
like a 3-point shot, right? Like, it was on the fadeaway. Extra run. But that tied the game, right? And then, I want to tell you that the bullpen today did not inspire a whole lot of confidence in me. Nick Martinez was human, allowed a run in his 2 innings of work. Justin Wilson, bless his heart. I don't know. Justin Wilson at times has been good, but he's never been consistently good. I don't know. Is it worth keeping Justin Wilson around when you've got Alex Young sitting down in Louisville? I feel like, of the 2, Alex Young's probably a little bit better. The difference is that Justin Wilson doesn't have options, right? Yeah. So if they're gonna make that move, they've got to cut Justin Wilson. But 1/3 of an inning, 2 runs on 2 hits, 1 strikeout. He currently is sporting a 6.75 ERA during his big league time with the Reds this year. Not inspiring stuff. Lucas Sims also did not look great. 2/3 of an inning, he allowed a hit. Walked a guy, struck out a guy. Sims has been inconsistent. Man, I love Lucas Sims. He is a friend of this show. He comes on every offseason and sits down with us and talks about his offseason program and spring training. Every year he does that. And great guy. I want him to have more success. This looks like he's struggling. He's really working for it right now. And I hope that there's some kind of tweak that can get him right.
Yeah, because he had stretches there where he was really, really good this year. I think there was about a 15 on 15 appearance stretch where he was awesome. So if we're looking right now in hindsight, I actually have it up now. So looks worse than it really is. Last 7 appearances, 3.18 ERA. Last 15, 2.38. It's the last 30 that people go into that kind of makes the picture of the season, obviously. But really, today was kind of an outlier. He's been fine. It just kind of, when you're on this alert where the team is needing all these wins, they're needing to catch up and they're needing to make up for the horrid month they had, where I think they've already won half the amount. I think they've won a third amount of the games that they did last month already. Maybe more. What are we? Yeah.
They've won 9 out of their last 12.
Yeah. And they were 9-18 in May. So catching up. By the way, plus 11 run differential, second in the division. So shout out games in Colorado. But back to Lucas Sims, it's just kind of a thing where these games are such a bigger microscope right now, because this is a team that needs to get all these wins back that they really let go a lot. I mean, how many of those 9-18s could you see being like 13-16? Or I mean, that math doesn't line up, but you get exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They definitely had chances where they could have won a few of those games, and now it's like they got to catch up from all those. And we forgot to mention they somehow won a game where TJ Friedl's on third base with no outs, and Elly Cruz gets caught stealing in the first inning, and they still freaking won the game. And there's lots of guys that contributed to this. Before we get out of this pitcher talk,
Fernando Cruz is back to, man.
Rules.
Fernando Cruz is something else, man. He is just, what a luxury to have at the back end of the bullpen where you can keep getting to Fernando Cruz to set things up, and you never get to Alexis Diaz. The team is scoring runs. Fernando Cruz is out there setting it up. He gets the win last night. We never see Alexis Diaz because Jonathan India, but Fernando Cruz has been a beast. In last night's game, or yesterday's game, 1 inning of work, he allowed a hit, didn't strike anybody out, didn't walk anybody, just got through it. And that's what you got to do, right? You just have to get through it. I am a fan of Fernando Cruz. I would love to, it's too bad he came on the scene so late, already in his 30s. It's too bad that he figured it out so late in his career, because he's going to have only a finite amount of time that he's going to be able to be a big leaguer based on his age and just, the curve. But man, how much fun is that right now? I will say I had kind of wanted to see Alexis Diaz today. I didn't want him to come into this Cubs series having not pitched in 3 or 4 days. I don't know that I would not have went ahead and pitched him anyway in the 9th inning instead of Brent Suter.
Especially because he was warming up. So
for the second day in a row, they warmed him up the previous game as well, and he didn't get in.
Yeah, I remember Brian Wilson when he was as good as he was for the Giants, would call that the dry hump. I thought that was really funny. So I guess it's been a lot of Alexis Diaz's pitching life of late. So hopefully that is cured soon on this Cubs series. I'm sure it will be. But I think I would have too, just for the sake of. I hate the term closer. I think it's so stupid. But I do also think that it's not good to have a guy just sit for 3 or 4 days without getting to throw it in game action. And then when you really, really need him, when it's a 1-run game in the 9th inning, now you call on him. That's really silly to me, but it's also not great for the pitcher because those guys live off of consistent outings, not pitching 4 days in a row by any means, but once every 2 days or so, probably doesn't hurt. Once every 2-3 games.
Get out there and sling it a little bit. All right, listen, we've talked about the pitching, but we have not talked about the big three hammers that got things done for the Cincinnati Reds in that game yesterday. We're talking Spencer Steer, we're talking Elly De La Cruz, and we're talking Jonathan India. All of that coming up next. Baseball season is moving right along, and you can make some cash on Elly De La Cruz performances over on PrizePicks. Whether it's stolen bases, home runs, hits, or more, just pick more or less on Elly and add them to your PrizePick entries today. If you think Elly's gonna steal some bases, click more. If you think he's not, click less. If you think he's gonna get 3 hits, click more. If you think he's gonna get less, click less. Elly's been playing up and down, and you're going to have to decide if you want to take the up or if you take the down. But if you get it right at PrizePicks, you can turn $10 into $100 with just a few taps. Just download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. They have quick withdrawals, easy game plays, and an enormous amount of selection of players and stat types to choose from. That's what makes PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app. So get in on the action with PrizePicks. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for your first deposit match of up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. You have got to check out Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 streaming sports channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in sports. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or for free on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Tim, let's talk about the big three that went down yesterday, because there were 3 guys that all played a big part in the Reds being able to come from behind and do the rally Reds thing and get it done. Let's start with Elly De La Cruz, because I've been saying for 2 days now that he was showing signs of a breakout. 2 games back, we saw him hit a very loud, hard out to deep right field that got caught. He got back in the dugout. Guys were high-fiving him. Guys were reacting like, we saw something there. You did something there. We're almost there. Then he goes out and gets a hit in his next at bat. And seemingly, okay, this is where it's going to be. The following game, he homers. And we're like, all right.
Right-handed at that.
right-handed, a blast of over 440 feet. I don't know if you saw this statistic, but home runs of more than 440 feet in Major League Baseball this year. Aaron Judge leads the league in 5. Elly De La Cruz is tied for second place with Shohei Ohtani, and Elly's doing it from both sides.
Good company.
So good company. So we see that home run. And what I said on yesterday's show was that now I needed to see a multi-hit game. I needed Elly to be on base more often. And he only went 3 for 5 with 3 singles and did the thing. So I think Elly's breaking out of it. Colorado fixes your woes, man. It fixes what ails you. And Elly's starting to string it together.
So not only that, it's the where he's hitting the ball. I think it's really jumping out too. So one of the singles today was opposite field. Had opposite field hit the first game of the series when he broke the 0 for 16 to get that RBI. I think is kind of that's when. So when I talked to John Sadek about this on my show recently, and what he kind of said to me was, you see these things coming with Elly when they start to get hot, when the walks come up, which should come up. He didn't walk at all in this series, and he still managed to get 5 hits in the 3 games. So I have a feeling that, and I think too, one of the things that kind of jumps out a lot, and John and I mentioned this as well, is even with the strikes, he's called differently than everyone else. I think he's done a pretty good job with the strike zone realistically. He's pitched the least in the zone other than Ohtani and Bryce Harper. And I think there's another name I don't have off the top of my head. Sadek said it on my show the other day. But this is kind of where you want from him. This is where he needs to be. And this is a maturation process. I think we got to keep remembering this is a 22-year-old dude who has the world of talent ahead of him and is still figuring it all out. It's going to be okay.
There's some guys in the comments. I know you went and have been reading the comments from the shows that you've been on. And there are some guys that don't like that we keep falling back on. He's 22 years old. They perceive it as we're making an excuse for Elly. I'm not making an excuse for Elly when I say he's 22 years old. He is just a baby in this game. He's just a child amongst men in this game. He is going to continue to learn. He's going to get bigger. He's going to get stronger. He's going to get more baseball smarts on top of the baseball smarts that he already has. And he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. But like anybody that's young, whether you're talking about young in life, young in your job, young in experience, whatever it is, you have to learn. And there's going to be growing pains along the way. We see that when he gets thrown out sometimes. He's a little too aggressive at times. We see that when he's trying to figure out his pitch selection and what he wants to hit, and he takes one down the middle because he's in his head. We're going to see that, and he's going to figure that out. I have no doubt that he's going to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at how early he got called up into his professional baseball career, guys go through this. I mean, other than him, was it Bryce Harper is the comparison, and he had his ups and downs, and I think that's going pretty well, right?
Yeah, I think that turned out okay.
Yeah, so,
I think that ultimately worked itself out.
Yeah, Ronald Acuna, that, obviously not right now at the moment, but that worked itself out. Julio Rodriguez has these weird stretches every year. It works itself out. It's just part of the maturation process. Hunter Green is the perfect example, right? So, yeah, I understand that people... Elly... I don't want to take up your whole segment here, Steve, but with Elly De La Cruz, I think that when people see him go through these slumps, they're scarred by the past of Billy Hamilton, the Nick Senzel, this is the next big thing. It didn't go our way.
Aquino. I have been seeing people compare Elly De La Cruz to Aristides Aquino, and they are
that's wrong.
They're so far. Yes, it is wrong.
Yeah.
Before we move into the next player, though, I did also, just as an aside, want to mention that in your previous appearances, you were labeled what you would get if you ordered a Jeff Carr from wish.com.
That was awesome.
And I saw in the comment section the other day that they're calling you Walmart Jeff Carr now, which I thought was absolutely hilarious.
Okay. Whoever said that is a genius. That was the funniest thing I've read, to the point where I was laying next to my wife, looking at the comments just to be like, I could live with like Tim or Tim, you don't know baseball. Like, as long as you don't insult anybody, that's fine. So when I saw that someone said Walmart Jeff Carr, screenshotted it, texted to you and Jeff, sent it to my wife, and I was like, this is the funniest thing that's ever been said about me.
That's great. Like I told you the other day, our comment section is undefeated. They're great. Our comment section is undefeated. All right, let's jump into another one of these guys. He was going to be the hero, right? Come from behind homer to give the Reds the lead. Spencer Steer, he was 1 for 5 yesterday, but it was a big one. It was the go-ahead 2-run homer. to get the job done. Spencer Steer has been having himself a couple of weeks. If you haven't looked at his numbers over the last week, slash line in the last 7 games of 379, 419, 552. Cool. The last 2 weeks, 315, 403, 556. He's been hitting for 2 weeks now, and we've been just kind of waiting for the power to come back. I think the power is coming back. Spencer Steer, early in the season, I was trying to differentiate between somebody that's an MVP candidate, a most valuable player, and somebody that's the most important player on your team. And sometimes those can be different guys. Whether or not Spencer Steer is the MVP candidate from this team, if we could only pick one guy, I don't know if that's Spencer Steer. But I know he's the most important player on this team because he hits well. He plays multiple positions defensively well. Not all-star caliber defense at all of them, but he can be out there for several games in a row and you don't fall off that much. He's very, very serviceable, very Ben Zobrist at a lot of positions. And I think it makes him the most important player on this team.
Yeah, I think that's a really, I haven't heard the Zobrist comp, and that makes so much sense. So this year going into today versus the Cubs, 41 games in left field, 21 games at first base. When I was on your show the other day, I made mention that I feel like he should be the everyday first baseman.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the prominent first baseman. Everyday first baseman is hard to say anymore. But yeah, I mean, he had 6 hits in this series. Like you mentioned, he's left 403 on base percentage the last 2 weeks. And obviously we all know that he's a pizza guy. So he must have had that. It's like the Ninja Turtles video game. Remember when like you were low on life and you had to grab the pizza? That's his slump buster is what he said, right? So
right.
He must have had that large Domino's pizza, wherever his pizza choice is. I don't know if you guys have a corporate sponsor for the pizza company, so I apologize.
We do not. We do not. We don't have a pizza guy. We don't have a pizza guy yet. But if you're a pizza guy and you want to be our official pizza guy, hit me up.
Same.
Hit me up.
Same. But yeah, I think that with what you're getting from him is what you expect. So you mentioned you think he's the most important player because of his utility at level play of defense and the fact he hits well. He was squeezed in his first couple at bats today. He struck out a couple times. He had 1 strike 3 that was very questionable in the corner, and you could see he even reacted to it. So it almost felt like he kind of took some aggression out on that ball. And keep doing it. Keep doing it.
And as good as a couple weeks as he's had, and before we get out of this segment, we've got to talk about this guy, because as good as Spencer Steer has been the last 2 weeks, let's talk about former Rookie of the Year, Jonathan India. In his last 15 games, his slash line is 318, 448, 523. That's fantastic. You want to narrow that in a little bit more? The last week of games, the last 7 games, 21 at bats, Jonathan India is 429, 533, 667 with a homer and 7 RBIs. And by the way, 6 walks.
Yeah. That's awesome. I do want to talk about India for sure, obviously, but we should also mention in yesterday's game, shout out Jacob Hurtubise for that triple. That goes a long way in that game too.
Yeah.
But dude, this is what you've expected for Jonathan India, right? Matt McClain's gone. You need someone to step up here. He calls himself the leader. He says he's El Capitano. This is what the captain does here. His way of, even with the ups and downs of his batting this year, his ability to work the strike zone and draw walks and be patient has been so impressive. I mean, you're looking at realistically a guy right now who has a 705 OPS, but has just been getting on base through all of it, has managed to get everything going. This is a guy who had a huge different, the role he was going to play going into the season has been very different because of the injuries and lack thereof. So what they're getting from him right now, that grand slam was huge. The second one, obviously, with the Dodgers won a couple weeks ago, but just making things happen, man, and working at bats and keeping his team alive. And then today, closing the door on a sweep, fantastic. Yesterday, I get my days mixed up.
We'll have a couple final thoughts on Jonathan India, and then ask the question: do the Cincinnati Reds have a Graham Ashcraft problem? We're talking about that coming up next. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. We tell you about this app all the time. Jeff uses it. I use it. This is how I get most of my Reds tickets. I'll head down to the banks, find a great restaurant, find a spot to have some food and a couple drinks. And then as it gets close to game time, I'll go to Game Time. I'll get on the Game Time app. I will find the ticket that I want and head over to the ballpark. It's just that easy. With Game Time, you can jump on the app. You're going to get all in pricing. You're going to know exactly what it is that you're going to be paying. They have more than just baseball. You can get Bengals tickets on here. You can get concert tickets. The possibilities, they're endless. And if you're going to a venue that you don't necessarily know very well, with the Game Time app, they make it easy to see exactly what the view is going to look like from your seat. So you can go to the Game Time app, get your all-in pricing, know what your view is going to be. And for first-time customers using the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, you're going to get $20 off already greatly discounted prices. Again, just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create that account, redeem that code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. You can catch every pitch of the Reds' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Reds. All right, let's finish this thought on Jonathan India, because what's truly remarkable about what India is doing right now and the place that Jonathan India is in is this was a man without a position. This was a man without a role. This was a man who was involved in every single trade rumor that had the Cincinnati Reds team name included in it in the offseason heading into the season. And now he has just proven himself to be this invaluable piece of the team. And it reminds me of something that Dusty Baker used to say over and over and over again, which is these things take care of themselves. And everybody was wondering what the Reds were going to do with all of these infielders. And they signed Jeimer Candelario, who had himself quite a series, and we didn't even get to talk about him today. But what were the Reds going to do with all these guys? And true to Dusty Baker's knowledge of baseball, these things kind of took care of themselves.
They did. And I think for him, I'm really happy for him because of all the things you mentioned. And then the struggles he had this year where there's a lot of chatter out there of maybe we were wrong. Maybe the rookie of the year, Jonathan India, was a one-time thing. Maybe we're not going to get that all the time. And I wouldn't go and say that he's playing at that level again by any means, but what he's done lately has been tremendous and what they needed. And I think that he's a guy who wants to wear that on his sleeve, right? And I think this is what he wants to do. So they're going to need him to keep it up, man. They want to keep making this up. They want to keep winning these games, winning these series. This is what you need from Jonathan India. I think right now he's put himself in a good position. We'll see how things shake out the rest of this week with the Cubs to potentially get that National League Player of the Week role this week.
He very well could win that. That is not something that's outside of the realm of possibility. I think he could truly pull that off. Before we get out of here today, Tim, I want to talk a little bit about Graham Ashcraft. And I'm beginning to wonder if the Reds may have a Graham Ashcraft problem on their hands. I don't know if you caught this during the pitching change in Colorado yesterday, but it looked like there was a little bit of animosity on the field there between Graham Ashcraft and David Bell. Now, before anybody wants to jump in and accuse me of being a hot stir of whatever, it's totally possible that Ashcraft was just pissed off because he had a bad outing. And that's fine. But it looked like it was a little bit more than that.
It did. It potentially could be a guy who is wearing the fact that he hasn't had a quality start since May 1st. It could be the fact that he's a guy who we can normally count on. We went through the stretch last year too, had the IL stint, came back and was awesome. I'm not saying he needs to do that again this year, but if you look at not just his Colorado start, so his last start before that, 4 2/3. The late start before that, 5 1/3, gives up 5 runs against the Dodgers. May 18th only gets to the 5th inning. May 13th only gets to the 4th inning. In May, Steve, he started 6 games. He had 30 total innings. So something is not clicking with him. We talked about this a couple days ago when I was on here with you about just making that next adjustment, figuring out how to get to that third time in the order. He wasn't even allowed to get to the third time in the order yesterday. As soon as Charlie Blackmon came up for the third time, David Bell was there. So I'm sure he's probably just pissed off. I'm sure he's probably wearing this right now. The 5 ERA for the season, the 5.20 his last 7 starts. I don't think that's Graham Ashcraft, who he really is. I hope it doesn't continue this way, but with what's on the horizon, not just the Brandon Williamson portion of it, but Emilio Pagan comes back today is the game plan.
Mm-hmm.
So is Graham Ashcraft sent down, same extra guy in the bullpen until the next guy's ready to start in his spot? Who knows? I don't know if he gets sent down, but there's something conversations.
Well, because there's options right now. I don't know that Brandon Williamson is necessarily ready.
Right.
Brandon Williamson on the season, he's pitched in 4 games, thrown 13 and 2/3 innings. Now he's been very, very good in those 4 starts, 13 and 2/3 innings. He's allowed 7 hits, only 1 run since he's been doing his rehab work. That's good for a 0.66 ERA. He struck out 11 while walking 3. He's pitching very, very well, but it's the minor leagues, and that's what you would expect. I don't know that he's ready. He's definitely not stretched out enough. You know who is Carson Spires. Carson Spires could come take the next turn in the rotation. So I told you the other day that Graham Ashcraft might be due for an inflamed ERA trip to the injured list and shut it down for a couple turns, give him a nice 10 to 15 day break to clear his mind. You know, when his grandmother died last year, he fell completely apart, and it justifiably. It was a lot. And he took a break. He took a break. He was on the injured list. He came back from that, and he was Graham Ashcraft again. I think he's in his own head right now, and I don't know how they can fix that other than maybe just calling a timeout. Put him on the injured list for whatever you can come up with, and let Carson Spires take a turn. And then maybe by the next time through, Brandon Williamson's ready, or Carson Spires gets 2 turns to show what he can do, and then you get to Brandon Williamson. But you can't keep running Graham Ashcraft out there with whatever it is that's going on, and especially now if there's conflict starting to build up between him and his manager.
Yeah, right now he's projected for his next start to be the first game of that Guardians series, which I don't know if you've looked at the Guardians. Probably not when you're struggling, a team you want to see come to town. But I'm with you. I don't know what the rule is. So I said in Carson Spires' last appearance, I felt like he earned his keep. I knew he was getting sent down because of how many innings he pitched in that game, but I certainly think he deserves to be on this Major League roster for the rest of the year or until something happens. So I definitely could see that being a possibility. I think miss a couple starts in the IL, breathe, relax, think it through. Might not be the worst thing. I'm not at put him in the bullpen yet. I still think that's silly, because I still think he has a ton of talent. But we not learned yet. We don't write these young Reds players off. Things seem to kind of work themselves out. Like you said, they seem to put it together at some point.
No, it totally could happen. I don't know that I think he's a bullpen guy either, but there's definitely something wrong, and I would like them to fix it. I would like him to fix it, and whatever has to happen to accomplish that, I am all for. Because the Reds are better when Graham Ashcraft is good Graham Ashcraft. And on that note, I think that is probably a good spot to go ahead and wrap it up for today. The Cubs are in town, 4-game series out at Great American Ballpark. If you can get down there, get down there. Quick predictions. I think the Reds are going to split this series. Tim, do you see it another way?
I think a split's kind of fair. The pitching matchups are kind of up and down. I'm really excited to see how Hunter Green responds today after his last outing, which I didn't think was terrible. Just wasn't what we've seen him pitch of late. So I'm excited to see how he responds against the same lineup and see if he can put those issues behind him for this one.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Reds. Thanks so much for making us your first listen every day. Everydayers coming up. We will have you covered for the first game. We'll be talking about that Hunter Green start. We will break down how he did and how we see the rest of this series going. In the meantime, click that like button, click that subscribe button, click that notification bell. If you're in the audio feeds, make sure you subscribe, leave us a review. And after you've done all that and you're locked in on Locked On Reds, head over to the Riverfront and subscribe to those guys too, because they're doing great work as well with Tim Daniel on Late Night Reds. Until next time, we will keep you locked on Reds every single day.